From the beautiful city of Los Angeles, California, we bring you the Gimme 3 podcast.
Welcome back, cinephiles, cinema lovers, and movie appreciators to the Gimme 3 podcast, a series for cinephiles. As you all know, or if you're new to the show, this is the podcast where we dive into 3 films connected by one theme. And since we're unpacking all 3 movies in detail today, consider this your official spoiler alert. I'm Bella Efstratis, here with my incredible co-host, Nicholas Ybarra, and today's episode is extra special because we're also joined by our amazing producer and LA Diversity Film Festival director, Sonja Mereu. Welcome back, you guys. It's so nice to be back on here with both of you.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Have we been on an episode, all 3 of us together?
That's a good question. I don't know if we have.
I thought maybe we had, but now I can't think. Like maybe a bonus episode, but I actually
I don't think so.
Yeah. Wait, fun! Oh my god, I didn't even realize that.
Wow, this is a first time. This is a special episode here. First time for everything.
Very special.
Well, I'm honored.
Well, before we dive into today's theme, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the devastating wildfires that have swept across our beloved city this past few days and the surrounding communities here in LA as well. And just say that our thoughts and hearts are with everyone affected by this. We hope you guys are all staying safe and giving yourself some extra love and time to heal from everything. And we love you and we're here to support you in absolutely any way that we can.
Absolutely. And, shout out to the firefighters and all the first responders who are doing an amazing job. Hopefully, by the time this episode is released, we're going to be, in a much better place than we are now here recording this on January 11th. Still kind of in the thick of it, but yeah, love everybody, and also shout out to the city of Los Angeles, our community, and our citizens who have just been like this outpouring of support and donations and just unity, which is wonderful to see. And knew my city would show up, and they have. So God bless.
Absolutely. All right. So as you guys can probably tell from the title of our episode, today we're talking about our favorite movies from 2024. Last year, for our 3rd episode ever of the Gimme 3 podcast, we did our favorites of 2023, of course, where we talked about some of the greatest movies from that year. We had Killers of the Flower Moon, Poor Things, The Holdovers, and then we even did a bonus episode of 3 more of our favorites from 2023, which of course included Barbenheimer. And God, just listing those makes me remember how incredible that year was.
That was a banger year.
Such a great year.
Oh, so good. And in 2024, we were also treated to some masterpieces as well as genre-bending, truly original gems that I think have already reshaped the way a lot of people experience movies. Of course, we still had our big blockbusters like Wicked and Gladiator 2, which are just always a great time. Twisters. I don't know if you guys will agree with me on this, but I feel like this year, the strange and unusual movies are really starting to take center stage a bit more. Like more and more people are going to see and post or talk about all of these maybe more like unconventional stories that may have flown under the radar a bit more in the past, like The Substance or even A Different Man, which we're talking about today. I just think it's so amazing to see all of these movies get the attention they deserve. And I think it's just a really exciting time for movie lovers as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the big movies weren't as interesting this year as in past years. Like I loved Twisters. We all know I love Twisters.
Right. We've talked about
it was very hard for it to not be on my list. But since we talked about it, I will not be discussing it in these episodes. But yeah, it seemed like, last year there were some really big movies that were, like tent poles that were also kind of going somewhere deeper. Even Barbie.
Yeah.
Or especially Barbie. This year, I can't think of anything off the top of my head that was like, I didn't see Wicked, but I can't say Gladiator 2 was like digging very deep.
Right. I would agree with that.
But you have like these mega stars like Demi Moore, doing
Mhm.
something like The Substance, and it's great. I'm so glad that that movie got so much box office love and critical love.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say also like The Brutalist, the fact that people,
Mm.
we live in LA, so maybe it's not a countrywide phenomena, but everyone I know has seen The Brutalist. And that movie is so long and about a topic that is not fun,
Right.
but people are coming out for it, seeing it more than once and loving it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's also, we're in an interesting period in the industry, obviously with the state of the Los Angeles film industry and productions moving out and everything. That's a topic
Right.
for a totally other episode. But we've been for the last 15, 20 years in this era of cinema that is really focused on the franchise, the superhero films, the Star
Mhm.
Wars. And I think cinephiles especially, but I think even the casual moviegoer is getting a little bit of fatigue with all of that. So I
Yeah.
think, and just talking to casual moviegoer people in my family, other friends who aren't, quote unquote in the industry or wouldn't consider themselves cinephiles, but they are just saying man, why don't we get some new stuff coming, like some original ideas? So people are hungry for new, fresh, original ideas. And I always say to them, they're out there. You just got to look for them. And we're going to talk about some today. And also, most of the films that we are going to be talking about over the course of these next 3 episodes are American. But if you're ever looking for fresh, new, fantastic shit, don't be afraid to look outside the country, because Japan, Korea, all over the world, they're just all constantly changing the game and really putting unique stuff out there.
So last year, you guys only got 1 to 2 episodes of our 2023 favorites, but this year you're getting a 3-episode series of our 2024 favorites. So you've got 3 from me, 3 from Nick, and 3 from Sonja. So if you feel like maybe you haven't seen a lot of movies from 2024, which low key was me, I still have so many more to see. Don't worry, you're going to get at least 6 recommendations from us. Plus, I'm sure some honorable mentions as well over the course of the next 3 weeks. Speaking of which, do you guys have an honorable mention you want to shout out? Any movies that didn't make the final Gimme 3 cut?
Oh, so many. Well, I mean, I had the fun honor of doing movie minutes throughout the year, so I didn't pick anything that I had already spoken about on the show, which includes, Twisters, obviously, which we talked about on our Summer Finds episode, and the Substance you guys spoke about at length. So,
Yeah.
but I think that would have been on all of our short lists.
Yeah,
for
sure.
this episode otherwise. Yeah, I mean, and I think A Real Pain would be another one that I might have talked about if we hadn't talked about it on the Fall Finds episode a couple weeks ago, because I do think that's a really great movie, and I'm just so in love with Jesse Eisenberg now.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, for me, there's a few. There's I'll you know what? I'll give you 3. Give me 3 honorable mentions. Here it is.
There we go.
One, I wasn't sure if this was really a 2024 release or a 2023 release. I'm sure it came out in 2023 in Japan. It's a film called Evil Does Not Exist, but it was released in January here in the States. So I really wanted to pick this, but I didn't know if it was cheating, and I didn't feel like getting the hate mail. So Evil Does Not Exist by the same filmmaker who did Drive My Car. Incredible, powerful piece of work. And then this is one of those movies that if this movie came out in the 90s, it would just be such a fucking ripper. It is a total see it in a theater, popcorn movie, good time experience. Unfortunately, given the state of things, And, it is a Netflix picture. So it had a grand total theatrical release of 1 freaking week. And the movie's called Hitman with Glenn Powell. So much fun. Really prime, genre-bending, romantic comedy. Very sexy, very fun. Sonja and I saw it at the Egyptian Theater. Lucky enough to see it on the big screen. Really, really dug that one. And then finally, I'm going to say The Piano Lesson, which I spoke about a couple of weeks ago at the top of the show because we revisited my interview with Virgil Williams, who was the co-writer of The Piano Lesson. So check out those films. Those are all wonderful, and I could have picked any of them for this episode.
God, I still need to see all those. Sounds so good.
Those were all in my list on Letterboxd for my favorites of 2024. But that's like 29 movies long because I saw 50 movies from 2024.
Oh my, yeah, that's amazing.
Sonja saw a lot from 2024. She
saw all of it.
She was the best of us.
I was on top of it. Like, for some reason, I have no idea how that happened.
That is amazing. I would say my 3 would be Alex Garland's Civil War. I really, really enjoyed that movie. It had a really big impact on me in that just like I kept thinking about it for days after watching it, weeks even. And I felt like it sparked really interesting like conversations with friends to talking about it and stuff like that. And then I would also say Andrea Arnold's Bird. I think maybe I talked about it in a bonus episode, which is why I didn't choose it because it was just so good. But that was an amazing, amazing kind of under the radar movie that I highly recommend. And then I loved Jane Schoenbrun's I Saw the TV Glow, which
I heard a lot of good things about
really
that.
Haunted me. Yeah, I think it's like one of the scariest, most unsettling movies I've ever seen, but so beautiful at the same time and just heart-wrenching and magical, and definitely worth the watch. I really love their work.
Did you see Everyone's Going to the World's Fair?
Yes, that was what put me onto their work. And I mean, obviously I think it's their first feature, like full-length feature film, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was so interesting.
Yeah, I really want to see both those movies, but again, too scary, I think. I think they'll mess me up.
It's a weird, it's a really weird type of horror. I can't really describe it. I would say it's more just like unsettling than like jump scares and stuff like that. So maybe, but I don't want to send you into something that you're going to be upset about.
Well, I have to say, I was not at all afraid of The Substance or Nosferatu, which are both known to be scary. So I
think you could handle
growing
them.
up. I don't know.
No, I think you could handle those 2 movies then, because Nosferatu scared the shit out of me. Anyways, we hope you guys enjoy this whole series. Hopefully, some of our favorites will overlap with yours, so you get to deep dive into those with us. Even better, we hope we inspire you to check out a few of these films if you haven't seen them yet. So without further ado, Nick, kick us off with your first pick.
All right, my first pick is a film called A Different Man, which is written and directed by Aaron Schimberg. I believe I said his name correctly. It stars Sebastian Stan, who he just won a Golden Globe for his performance. Renata Rensby, did I say her name correctly?
I think so.
Definitely the first name.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And Adam Pearson. So Sebastian Stan, he plays Edward, who is an aspiring actor. He's living in New York. Aspiring is kind of a nice word for it. He's struggling. He's a struggling actor. He's not only struggling with his career, he's struggling with his confidence, with his sense of self. He's struggling with his identity, and his place in this big, bad city of New York City. Edward also has neurofibromatosis. Say that 5 times fast. Essentially, this is, it basically manifests as a disfiguring facial condition. It's like a whole bunch of like tumors under the skin that make your face look disfigured. That is also adding to all of the things that I mentioned earlier. He's got a new neighbor, Ingrid, who is an aspiring playwright. And she takes a liking to Edward. She's one of the few people who's able to look past his facial condition and really get to know him. But, he's wanting to change his life. He's wanting to change his lot in life, not only with his career, he's wanting to give himself some more confidence. And now with this, connection with Ingrid, he sees something there. Maybe there's he can find somebody to love if only he could fix his face. So Edward decides to try an experimental medical treatment that may cure his condition. Physically, the treatment works. His face quickly, miraculously, I would say, rids itself of its disformities, of these tumors in some kind of extreme body horror scenes. And he starts to look like the Sebastian Stan that we know. What seems like at first may be a great new life, Edward, who also decides, by the way, hey, new face, new name. I'm just gonna, Edward, he's dead. Forget him. Now he goes by Guy. Guy is his new name. And he, starts a new career. He starts this new life. He's getting a whole bunch of one-night stands. Now he's a real estate guy. He's totally abandoned who Edward was. But he starts to question his decisions, especially when he rediscovers Ingrid, his old neighbor who he fell for. And she has written a play called, get this, Edward, a play about his former self. And he's like, motherfuck. So he wants to audition for this play. And on top of all this, he meets this other man, Oswald, another man with neurofibromatosis. Jesus. Only this guy, Oswald, he is not sad. He is not insecure. He is the definition of charismatic. He is funny. He's talented. He's accomplished. He is just the total package. He's got the one thing that Guy or Edward has been looking for his entire life and has not been able to get: happiness, self-worth, self-respect. The film is, I would say, at times very dark and meditative. At other times, it flirts with being a thriller. Like I said, there's some terrific body horror sequences. But throughout the film, it is riddled with comedy, a good comedy. And somehow it's able to balance all of these tones and deliver a really, as we were talking about in the intro, honest to God, unique piece of work, something you do not get to say too often. And that is why this is not only my top 3, this was my favorite film that I saw in the year of our Lord 2024. A Different Man.
Wow.
Yeah, I watched this movie yesterday, right before recording for the first time, and I wish I had watched it at least 5 times before recording this because I still haven't fully processed what I just watched. I mean, this movie is fucking insane. There's so much to unpack, so many layers, so many little yet powerful and important details. Mm-hmm. And when I say that you simply cannot expect where it will go next, believe me, it is just, like you said, it's one of the most unique movies I've ever seen. I can't stop thinking about it. I don't think I will stop thinking about it for a really long time. Yeah, I'm so glad you picked this. I think it's a pivotal and profound film as well. One for representation of people with facial differences or disabilities. And 2, I absolutely loved how intensely it confronted themes of discomfort and identity and beauty and self-love. Mm-hmm. It's just, it's so affecting, so original. And yes, to your point as well, a true hybrid of genres. I mean, I loved the comedic elements. I loved, it's an ultimate thriller. I mean, just heart pounding throughout the whole thing. And there's also, like you said, so many brilliant moments of kind of sci-fi and horror and gore that was really unexpected, at least for me. I was not prepared for this movie at all. So that was really fun as well.
Yeah, listening to you describe the film, Nick, you were having the same, I think, issue that I have had every time I've tried to recommend this film to anyone. First of all, I don't know anyone who's watched it besides us. So Nick and I saw it in a probably almost empty theater, unfortunately, but that's also so often the case at our local theater. Yeah, I don't think it was seen by a really wide audience. And so I really try to recommend it to every single person I talk to. And every time I start describing it, I just like see their eyes glaze over and I'm like, just see it, please, because that's a sign that it's good, that I can't like sum it up. I mean, it's first of all, it's
Are you
so
saying
funny.
that your eyes glazed over as I was describing the movie right now?
I stopped listening.
I'm not saying that. No, I'm just kidding. No, I was listening and I was just like, everything he's saying is correct, but it doesn't really scratch the surface of why the movie is great or what it's about, even though it is literally the plot that, you know, that you described. It's so much more about like the way you feel when you're watching it and the way that you feel for the characters, and not just empathy. Like sometimes you're like, you know, disgusted with them. And it's so funny. Like we rewatched it this morning before recording to have a little refresher. And I was like, I do not remember laughing this hard in the theater, but I'm laughing out loud the entire time.
Yeah, really want to highlight the script. Obviously, Sebastian Stan does incredible work, and he'll get, you know, a large portion of the credit for this movie in awards season, I imagine. But the script itself and the themes of self-love are really, you know, what this movie is about. And it's just laid out so beautifully, you know. I have a lot of friends with disabilities, and they always tell me stories about they're at the train station or they're walking or going down to a restaurant, and then somebody will just like come up to them and try and give them an inspirational quote or something, you know, or ask them a question about some medical condition that they have. And that's a scene that we get, you know, very early on here from Edward's neighbors. And then they also deal with something else that we get from another one of Edward's neighbors, which is like his neighbor down the hall. Every time he'd see him, he'd just say Jesus, you know, and just kind of like move around him. Edward sees that guy later in I think it's Central Park, walking with like a beautiful, gorgeous woman. He's on a date with this like absolute fox. And he's like, God damn, you know, just like this sense of longing, this sense of emptiness just like washes over Edward. And not 5 minutes later in the film, we find that neighbor has hanged himself. So it's just it gives you this perspective, you know, immediately of like things are not always as it seems. You know, don't judge a book by its cover. You know, you don't know what's going on inside of somebody. And I think that really comes into fruition the first time that we meet Oswald, because Edward later, who's now Guy, has gotten the role that he was born to play in this play called Edward. And he's given this monologue during a rehearsal that Ingrid wrote about, you know, not wanting to draw attention to yourself and wanting to fall into yourself, which is how Edward and Guy still feel throughout their life.
The reality is my face is fragile, and it's imperative that I conduct my life based upon this fact. When in doubt, live in fear. That's my mantra. Stay out of ballrooms or crowded places in general. Be nice to people, be deferential, be the bigger man. Argue if I must, and I mustn't really, only from a safe distance or under the protection of some powerful friend, if I even had one, and if he could then be relied upon.
And as he's delivering this monologue, the camera pans away from him doing this monologue, and across the theater, we find Oswald. And what does Oswald do immediately? He does the exact opposite of what Edward says.
Oh, pardon the intrusion. I met this casting director. Unique and unusual physiognomies is a speciality. And he told me about this interesting play you're auditioning for and thought I could potentially be a perfect fit. So I'm no actor, but I thought, let's come down here, give it a gander. And from the tidbit I've just seen, seems like a rather curious piece. But, alas, I see the role's filled, and rather ably, I must say. So, congrats to all involved, and best of luck. Break a leg, as they say. I'll be sure to see it when it comes out. Take care.
He draws the most attention to himself. He's like, "Oh, sorry, I just thought about this play, and my friend told me about it. And look at that, I just came in here, and my God, but you're really great. Anyways, fucking great, and have a good break a leg, as they say. You know, it's just like, wow, this guy's fun. I'd like to be around that guy." Anyways, the film is just loaded with juxtapositions and stuff like that about these two characters and these two people, and how perspective could really shift one's internal being. I also want to shout out the other thing besides the script is fearless direction, man. Like, this guy is not afraid to just say, fuck it. I'm not the rules. I don't give a fuck about them. There was one scene I especially want to call out, which is early in the film. It's a scene where Edward's like first meeting with the doctor. You know, the doctor kind of like, tells him about this experimental treatment for the first time. So the camera starts slowly tilting up the doctor's body, looking at his shoe, looking at his pants. And it's like pretty boring, mundane dialogue where, you get the sense that he's had this exact same conversation with a doctor 1,000 times before. It's like, oh, your eyesight's kind of going. Oh, how's your hearing doing? How's this doing? How's that doing? Finally, the doctor drops this news that there's this new treatment. And boom, the camera just does this crash zoom into Edward. And it stays on his face. And it does this like dolly wraparound shot. And it's just like, my God, we had a very slow, mundane tilt up. And then we pulled out. And then we crash zoomed into this dude's face. And then we had this like come to Jesus, like light bulb going off dolly shot. It was like 4 different kinds of camera work in a single shot. That is screenwriting they call the, what do they call it? The call to action, basically. Fucking A, man. Really, really, really strong work there. So anyways, I could talk about all the technical achievements and like symbolic stuff for hours, which we do not have, but those are just a few of the things I wanted to call out about this movie.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't even notice that kind of stuff when I'm watching a movie a lot of the times. I obviously feel those decisions.
Yeah.
But as you're describing it, I'm like, oh yes, that all did happen. But I was just thinking, what will Edward do?
Yeah,
does he want to do this?
Right.
How does he feel about it?
Yeah.
And that answers your question, but like the camera work answers that question for you.
Right.
Yeah, I loved, to your point too, Nick, all the like the theme of perspective and just the different ways they tackle that. Like at one point, we even get Ingrid's point of view on things with like how she perceived each and how she like wrote each of their interactions in her play.
Right.
And that was really interesting to watch as well, from like, just, we have like so many different perspectives of this one person.
Right.
And then, and it can be so frustrating. You really sense his frustration as well with that too, because he's like, I am him.
Right.
Like, this is me. And the director had a really cool quote that I heard him talk about in a video where he said, because I guess the biggest question that everyone asks him about this movie is like, why doesn't he just reveal himself? And because there's a lot of moments where he could say like, I'm Edward, but he still goes with Guy and all this kind of facade. The director said he's constantly revealing who he is and nobody is taking him seriously. And I thought that was so interesting. And he pointed out that in like his first audition for Ingrid's play, after his transformation, he literally says, like you said, I am Edward. I was born for this role. And Ingrid just kind of, brushes that off as like a metaphorical actor kind of thing. But it's the truth. And then he just doesn't have like the courage or the confidence to, take that a step further and really confirm that with everyone in his life.
He pulls back, as Edward always pulled back. He was always too afraid to stand up for himself or put himself out there.
Right. The play stuff also just reminded me a lot of Synecdoche, New York, which we've talked about on the podcast. And just the way that movie made me feel was very similar to like the feelings I had in this, of just like not being taken seriously, struggling with your identity and self-love and stuff like that. I feel like if I had to choose a movie that maybe is similar, that would be like the only one that comes to mind. And these are like, there's no other movies like this.
Yeah, that's a fascinating and good comparison. I wouldn't have thought about that, but as you're talking about it, thematically for sure, and then just putting identity and oneself in a play as a means of trying to figure out who you are, is totally a connection. Yeah.
But this one's so different in that like he didn't even get to write this play about himself, which is a huge point of the film.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just brilliant.
We should also just give a shout out to the makeup artists on this movie, or special effects artists, however you want to describe them, because Edward's appearance before he becomes Guy is extremely convincing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as well as even in a more subtle way, there's a scene late at the very end of the movie where it's many years later and Ingrid is older. I mean, they're all older, but specifically like Ingrid's age makeup was really well done.
Subtle, but totally believable. And we should also mention, excellent special effects makeup work, but should also mention Adam Pearson, who just like really at a certain point decides, not only does he steal the play from, he steals this fucking movie. Like he comes in and he's like, okay, this movie's mine now. And he runs with
amazing.
it. And this is an actor who actually has neurofibromatosis. That's the last time I'm going to say that. Neurofibromatosis. And
you did a good job this time.
He is just outstanding and a total delight to watch. And he shifts the gear of this movie into something that you didn't know you needed. And then he's in it. Like, hey man, this is my friend. This is my friend here. Come on in. It's awesome.
He's amazing. The scene where they run into each other and he's just finished doing yoga in the park just kills me.
The last thing I'll say before I whoop out 3 pieces of trivia here are, and I'm not going to give it away because I want people to watch it and experience it for themselves. But I think this movie has the best final line of a film of 2024. The best final line of the movie of 2024. So watch and experience for yourself, my friends at home, and let us know what you think of that. But now I'm going to give you guys 3 pieces of trivia. Are you ready? Give me 3 pieces of trivia for, what are we talking about? A Different Man. The first one's not that interesting, but I just thought it was impressive because so much happens in this movie. And there's like so many sets and they're shooting in New York, which is never easy, but they only had 22 days of production on this film. It's like, geesh, I've made movies in 25 days. I've made movies in 20 days. I've made movies in 22 days, 18 days. So I know how hard it is. And especially with this makeup, can you imagine? My goodness. I mean, they just did a tremendous, tremendous job. God bless everybody who worked on this movie. Excellent, excellent work, team. First AD, I don't know who you are, but well done. Piece of trivia number 2. There's a scene where Ingrid is kind of roaming around Edward's apartment and she catches a picture of Edward and his mother on the Edward's apartment wall. That is an actual picture of Sebastian Stan and his mother.
No way. Aww. That is a precious photo too.
It is. It is.
Wow.
And finally, third piece of trivia, which is really the only reason I am doing this segment right here, because I thought this was awesome. The bar scene after opening night of the play, where Edward is sitting at the bar and the guy is hilariously just rambling in his ear off, saying every politically incorrect thing you can imagine a person to say. And Edward's kind of watching Oswald and Ingrid from across the bar. That bar that they shot that in is the same bar from past lives where the three are having drinks together. In fact, Edward is even sitting in the same seat as Nora from
No
past lives.
way.
So there you go. That's the fascinating piece of trivia that I was
Oh,
like,
I love that.
that made me go audibly like, what?
Literally.
They're both very downtown Manhattan movies.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene where he gets off the train half a block from where the end of Past Lives took place.
I think they mostly
In the
shot it
theater.
in the Lower East Side.
Yeah, it's 100% East Village, Lower East Side. My favorite place in the world.
Yes, where Sonja's from. Sonja's my hometown. Could talk about it forever, but it's best to see it and experience it for yourselves, my friend. A Different Man. It is available to rent on demand as we are recording this, but I think soon it will be available on HBO Max, or at least I know it's going to be airing on some of the HBO channels. So check it out. Find a way to see it. Find a way to experience it. Find a way to love it. And please, please let us know what you think of the film.
My first pick from 2024 came out in, I want to say April, I'm going to guess. I could have looked that up, but I didn't. It came out earlier in the year. It's Love Lies Bleeding, which is directed by Rose Glass, stars Kristen Stewart, Katy O'Brien, Dave Franco, Ed Harris, and Jenna Malone. And it is a love story, a very violent, stylized, wild love story between Lou, played by Kristen Stewart, who runs a very filthy gym in New Mexico, and Jackie, who is an aspiring female bodybuilder who's hoping to go to Las Vegas and compete in a big competition and launch her career. The complication of the film is that Lou's brother-in-law beats the crap out of Lou's sister on a regular basis, and in a fit of steroid-fueled rage, Jackie kills him, which kicks off a series of wild and exciting events as they run from the law and try to save their love in the midst of all the chaos.
Yeah. And run from her dad, Kristen Stewart's dad, who also happens to be a friggin' freaky ass mob boss with some of the wildest hair you'll ever see Ed Harris adorn in your life.
Yeah, the dad is like an interesting character because he doesn't play a huge part in like the plot necessarily, but his presence is looming and affecting everything that happens.
Certainly. Certainly.
If that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the father owns a gun shooting range where Jackie gets a job when she rolls into town on her way to Las Vegas. And he has also been running a massive crime ring in the town for years. And Kristen Stewart's Lou is trying to get out of that and live a straight and narrow life. But this makes it a lot harder to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like I didn't fully appreciate this movie the first time I watched it. Like I really, really liked it. I love Kristen Stewart, huge fan. But I think I was just almost too shocked to comprehend what I had just watched. But I will say the rewatch is even better, in my opinion. Like coming back to it, I was like, oh my God, this movie fucking rocks.
I felt the same way. I felt the same way.
It just it got better and better, and I feel like it probably will the more and more I watch it. But yeah, you felt this. I'm glad you felt the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it in the first viewing. You know, it's really stylish. And first of all, I mean, can we just say, can we appreciate the title? Love Lies Bleeding. What a title. I think that's the best title of 2024. What a fucking title. But anyways, yeah, the first viewing, I liked it. I liked the style of it. I like all the performances, especially Kristen Stewart and Katy O'Brien and Ed Harris. They're all amazing. But the second viewing, I was really able to. The first time, Kristen Stewart's character is like really interesting, and at 1st glance, I was like, okay, there's not much there, but her performance is good. The second viewing, I was like, okay, no, there's a lot there, and her performance is so good that she is actually hiding so much of it in plain sight. She's hiding it from the other characters in the film that she even fooled me. She's hiding the trauma.
Yes.
She's, there's clearly this like history of abuse and domestic violence and other violence in her family. Her father, her mother, her sister's getting the shit beat out of her by her husband. And she wants to say, that she's better than it and she's above it all, but she's not. She's not. She is. There's no squeaky clean characters in this movie, and I think that's kind of what I appreciated more about it the second time, was that it's very honest. It's like it's a love story about two characters that have no fucking idea how to love because they have never experienced it in their life. Like, what does Kristen Stewart's character know about love? Not a goddamn thing. So it's and what is Katy O'Brien's character know about love? Not much either, because her family didn't love her, that we find out. So it's really powerful and twisted and sad and uplifting in all of those ways. So yeah, it had way more layers than I gave it credit for in the first viewing.
Yep. Yeah. This is also another just amazing genre blended thriller, similar to A Different Man. It's also a romance, a rom-com even. I feel like there's so many funny moments in this that I was just laughing out loud, which is necessary because this movie is really fucking intense. Like, there's horror and shocking gore once again that's I would say is done in a very artistic and tasteful way as well. And then there's this like brilliant surrealism and fantastical element that is kind of gradually woven into the narrative and just grows more and more and more throughout the course of the film, until this like giant, no pun intended, explosive ending that for me just really seals the deal on this being like a one of a kind movie.
Yeah, when we saw it, I loved it instantly. And I was sort of disappointed that Nick didn't grasp onto it quite as strongly as I did. This is another one that I've recommended to every single person I've talked to. But I think what sticks with you the first time is the gore and the like the stylized aspects of it, and just kind of like the shocking parts of the film. Like before I wrote it, or before I rewatched it for this, I jotted down like my favorite scenes, and they were all like just really brutal, intense scenes. And then rewatching it, I was like, yeah, I mean, that's all there, and that's part of what makes it great. It's a huge part. But yeah, the characters are so kind of vulnerable and sweet with each other. Like, it's a really wonderful love story.
Hey. So I gotta go to work today, but do you maybe want to hang out later?
You got a job already?
Yeah, I'm waitressing at this shooting range place just outside of town. It's like a ton of gun nuts weirdos. It pays pretty good, though.
Oh, man, don't work there.
Why not?
My dad runs it.
Oh, my God, I met him yesterday.
Fun.
Wait, the bug guy?
Yeah, the bug guy. So where are you staying?
I'm actually not sure yet.
What does that mean?
I was gonna ask if maybe I could crash here in a couple nights. I mean, like, it's just not get paid, like, if I can afford a room somewhere. Like,
You can stay here.
I need to sleep on the couch.
No, shut the fuck up. You can stay here.
This is delicious.
Good.
I mean, like, next time maybe take the yolks out, but...
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. There are so many like ew moments in this, meaning that like there were multiple times I've literally had an audible reaction of being like, ew, like gross, goopy blood splatters or like,
It's grimy.
know,
This movie is
yeah,
very grimy.
eating a creepy old guy eating a large beetle. Like, it's just so, yes, grimy is the perfect word. But I agree. I think there's also a really beautiful balance of like disgust and beauty as well. Specifically, there's kind of a very powerful female gaze in this movie as well, I would say. And I loved the way that they shoot Jack's body. Like, she's always shot through this kind of adoring lens. She's never made to look like a monster. Instead, we see her as this just like gorgeous power. Even like, we see her as this gorgeous, powerful, strong woman. And I love that so much. Even when her muscles start to like really bulge from all the steroids they're doing and stuff like that, it's just mesmerizing. And I don't know. I loved that aspect of it for me. And I don't know if maybe that's just how I perceive it. I feel like people could take away different like ways of different interpretations of that too.
I felt the same way. And I felt like they made a point to show how extremely strong and powerful she is, but also extremely feminine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like she's actually, Katy O'Brien is in Twisters again as well.
Oh, yeah.
She's one of the crew, the tornado wrangling crew. And she's gorgeous and awesome in that too, but much more kind of butch or whatever vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Like in this, she's really just softly beautiful at the same time as being like super ripped and a little insane. Yeah, I mean, I think the scene where she's at the bodybuilding competition is kind of like the most intense scene of the movie, as far as like, like you feel like emotionally for her, but then the ew factor is pretty massive as well.
Yeah. No, that scene makes me sick on so many levels. Like sick for her. I'm just like heartbroken at the way that the whole thing goes. And then, visually, like the imagery is just so disturbing.
Yeah. Although I have to say, when Kristen Stewart's like laying on the ground covered in an afterbirth or whatever it is, and she like opens her eyes and looks up at her, she really did look like a child or like a baby, like seeing its mom or something. It was kind of like sweet and tender.
Yeah, there's a weird tenderness throughout all of this movie, especially with Jack's character. Like I was describing her, I was watching this with my friend and I was like, she's like a gentle but also not so gentle giant. Like like she's so sweet, but then she also can be so violent and terrifying, but still is just beautiful throughout all of it, which is amazing.
I also wanted to mention another character which we hadn't mentioned yet, which is Daisy, played by Anna Baryshnikov. She is a local, presumably tweaker or something.
Oh yeah,
based on her teeth. A local girl who's in love with Lou and is kind of going after her throughout the whole movie and constantly complicating Lou's life. But she was so funny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That movie needed her so badly. Like every time she came up, you were like, oh God, but you were kind of like glad at the same time.
I mean, you want to talk about grime? The movie starts with Kristen Stewart. She's got her hand in a toilet trying to declog it, trying to pull pieces of shit out of there. And Daisy pops up behind her, trying to flirt on her, trying to get her freak on. And it's like, Jesus, do you want to let her wash the caca off her hands first before we? It's just like
she's not even wearing gloves in that scene.
It just sets the tone. It just sets the tone for the entire film immediately. It's just like shit, and this fucking tweaker trying to. It's just like the images.
Oh yeah. I also want to compliment the chemistry between Kristen Stewart and Katy O'Brien. I feel like it was just, for me, it was just off the fucking charts. Like, just such a believable couple. They seemed so comfortable with each other, and you could really feel just like this intense and, like you were saying, Nick, just very confused love, like not really sure how to express themselves, but you can feel it. And it's just, I loved it. It's intoxicating.
Everything that happened between them felt completely real.
Mm-hmm.
Their like one main sex scene, I guess you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
I guess there's two, but I'm thinking of the one where Kristen kind of like takes charge.
Mm.
Remember watching that in the theater and just being like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, this is really happening.
Yes.
And I don't think Katy O'Brien's like a super experienced actress. So a special props to her. You know,
Oh
Kristen's
my God.
like,
Yeah.
you know, been acting since she was born, basically.
Right.
But yeah, it's a hard role to play.
Oh,
on so many levels. Did you watch in the credits? They basically have like a silhouetted sequence of the two of them like dancing together.
Yes.
Like playing over the credits.
Oh.
I loved that so much, but I think it really says a lot about their chemistry. Like just watching the way that they moved together, like it felt like they were best friends or sisters or in love, you know. They just felt so comfortable with each other.
It's like the definition of a soulmate.
Mm-hmm. And it had a little bit of the like True Romance thing going on too, where it's like in True Romance, they keep having to save each other. Clarence and Alabama.
Right.
And this definitely like had that too. Like when one totally screws up, the other one like comes in to save the day for them.
I love it.
I do just have one piece of trivia for Love Lies Bleeding before we wrap it up.
Let's go.
I didn't look up 3 pieces, but this was just one that I realized as I was watching it. You know, Ed Harris, he plays the father to Kristen Stewart and Jenna Malone here, who plays Kristen Stewart's sister. Ed Harris was also Jenna Malone's father in Stepmom.
Oh, wow.
So is this some sort of sick, twisted sequel to Stepmom? We never see the moms. I'm just saying.
That is true. We do see the stepmom though, I think at one point when she's like fleeing the scene.
Oh, right.
She's
That's
like
right.
fleeing the house.
That's right.
She's like, you fucking ruined everything.
That's right.
Well, maybe
Was it Julia Roberts?
broke up with him.
I think it was. No, I don't know. It could be.
All right, my friends, Love Lies Bleeding. Check it out for yourselves. It's streaming right now on HBO Max, also known as Max for stupid people.
Nice. Our last film of the day, my first favorite from 2024. I've picked Luca Guadagnino's provocative, high-stakes romance Challengers set against the intense backdrop of professional tennis. A sports drama romance written by Justin Kurtzkis and directed by an art house director. So a bit of a unique one here. I caught this movie in theaters, I think it was last May. And it was just easily one of my favorite theater experiences of the last year. I had so much fun and I just absolutely loved it. So I had to pick it for our series. So the film follows Tashi Duncan, played by Zendaya, a fiercely competitive and wickedly talented tennis star who, at the peak of her career, finds herself caught in a complex love triangle with Art Donaldson and Patrick Zweig, played by Mike Faist and Josh O'Connor. Already such a great trio. Unfortunately, Tashi's promising and already incredibly accomplished tennis career is abruptly cut short by a devastating injury. Fast forward 10 years, and Tashi is now married to and coaching Art, who is a former tennis prodigy whose career has been faltering recently. And Tashi and Art's marriage is really put to the test as she depends on him to carry on their shared dreams. But shit really hits the fan when Patrick, Tashi's ex-lover, and Art's ex-best friend reappears in their lives. As Patrick climbs the ranks of the tennis world, a fierce rivalry ignites between the two men, which is fueled even more so by Tashi's unresolved feelings for both of them. The tension builds to a final intense climax orchestrated by Tashi herself as Art and Patrick face off in a high-stakes match that will decide the course of their careers and the fate of their relationships. And the film covers all of this through this fantastic nonlinear narrative that jumps back and forth across the 13 years that these three have known each other. It dives deep into the complexities of ambition and love and betrayal, and ultimately culminates in this just what I think is an incredible, unforgettable, and emotional climactic showdown. So, what did you guys think of Challengers?
I want to learn more about tennis now because it's clearly a very sexy and exciting sport. No, I echo everything that you said. I thought it was so much fun, and I thought that the strongest part was the construction of how they told the story, or like the order of how they told the story, and how like the tennis match kept coming back. Their final match against each other kept coming back to like frame the next chapter of the movie, and like the ups and downs of like the match are echoed in like the ups and downs of their lives. Really smart, especially considering that Justin, who wrote the film, said that he had never really watched tennis until a couple years ago and was so inspired by this one match that he saw that he decided to write a movie about tennis. So, but he seems to have learned a lot about tennis since then.
Yeah, that's so funny.
But yeah, so exciting. I mean, to me, the love story is between like the two men in more ways than like she's kind of, I mean, she's part of it, of course, but
she's kind of the third wheel of the whole thing in a way.
The third wheel and the homewrecker.
Yeah.
Yes, as she says. Yeah, like their love story and their breakup is kind of the emotional core of the movie for me.
Yes, I totally agree.
And the sexual core.
Yeah, yes. I love that this movie is so sexy and there's so much sexual tension, and yet there's like no sex. It's just amazing.
Yeah, just that really good kiss between the two of them.
Yep.
The two
Gets
guys.
it going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really do enjoy the chronology, the way they laid everything out, as both of you mentioned. Because sometimes a lot of movies will do that, of breaking the chronology, telling a story out of order. You know, everybody just trying to do their Tarantino thing for the sake of doing it, but it doesn't always it's not always necessary. For this film, it was completely, totally necessary, and really added that much more drama to the whole thing. I kind of had the opposite reaction to this movie as I did with Love Lies Bleeding, where the first time, the final act of Love Lies Bleeding, watching it, I was kind of like, eh. And then the rewatch, I was like, love it. Challengers, the first time I watched the final act, I was like, kick ass. I'm so in. Like, this is, I'm on the edge of my seat here. And then the rewatch, I was kind of like, eh.
Oh, interesting.
And I think it was just because I knew how it was going to end.
Yeah.
And that final match, that final segment that they have there is, I mean, I'm not over exaggerating. I think there's about 25 slow motion shots of human beings just looking at each other in a 5-minute period. And I was just like, okay, let's move it along here. But aside from that, what helps is Trent Reznor's score, which is, in my opinion, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, their score is the star of the film. If in my opinion, it is
fully,
absolutely out of this world. And if you guys need to get work done at home, if you guys are trying to do anything, if you got to clean the entire house in about an hour or something, or you got to fix your car, or you want to do some writing, throw that fucking score on, and you're going to watch your productivity skyrocket
And your heart rate.
and your heart rate.
Yeah, the score is everything for me as well. I think it's easily my favorite from the movies I've seen from this last year. And yeah, I think it really does just like bring everything together. It's just, like you said, it's the core of this film.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. And I mean, they'll start playing it like during these, like, it's like this intense score during like two people just having a conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like it's such bold choices.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He likes doing
It's
that.
really
He did that
strange.
a lot in Social Network also, where it's just like, okay, this person's gonna walk now. It's like, fuck the fucking hell, they're gonna walk now. They're gonna walk with Trent Reznor. It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
oh god damn, these people are. What are they feeling?
Yeah, it's so good. I love the color palette in this movie. On the second watch, I noticed that, you know, it's a lot of blues, greens, and white, which are all the colors of a tennis court.
Mm,
And I thought that was really clever.
Yeah.
And it also just, I love that because it's like, oh, okay, it's the colors of the tennis court, but then also all of those colors just emotionally make sense with everything the characters are going through. Yeah, I love that aspect of this movie too. I think visually, I love this movie, especially the cinematography. I think is super fun. And I love kind of what you were saying, Sonja, where editing wise, it keeps coming back to that final challenger match. I love how every time it comes back to that, the cinematography feels so experimental. Like every time they come back to it, they're exploring like a new way to capture the match and the intensity and the action and the movement. And it just gets like more and more intense every single time. And that for me was just exhilarating to watch.
Yeah, I agree. The tennis ball POV,
yeah.
and the
Tennis
I
racket
guess,
POVs.
Yeah.
mhm.
I call it the Happy Gilmore shot. But
Yeah,
it
oh
worked.
yeah. Totally the Happy Gilmore shot.
I love it. Somehow it just is like so fucking good in this movie.
Yeah, no, it's great. Sometimes they're under the court, you know.
Oh,
Mhm.
I love
Right.
those shots. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick and I actually worked on a commercial for Lacoste clothing
Mm.
several years ago. And it was like a tennis based commercial. And I remember being struck then by how beautiful tennis could be and like tennis courts could be. I had never thought about it. I've never played tennis. But I was thinking about that during this. I was like, yeah, it is kind of like an awesome setting, even though it's very simple.
We also worked on a tennis short film called Love 40 that played at the Tribeca Film Festival.
Oh,
That
awesome.
is true. Oh my God, so much tennis in my life.
Who knew?
Which is funny because I did not know when we made that movie that Love 40, or I think it's actually usually said 40 Love, is like a tennis score thing.
Oh.
I had like no idea that that's why the short was named that, which I'm glad I never admitted to the director because he would have been like, what? Why did you think it was called that then? Where do you think the name meant? But yeah, we were watching this and I was like, oh, it all makes sense. Okay. I really do need to learn more about tennis now.
Yeah, Love 40. Check it out. It stars Jack Henry
Lola
Robinson.
Kirk.
Yeah, Lola Kirk and Jack Henry
And
Robbins,
Jack.
who's Tim Robbins' son.
And Susan Sarandon's son.
And Susan Sarandon's son. Susan Sarandon, who's in Stepmom.
I was just thinking that. Oh, it's all connected.
It's all connected, man.
And the score of Love 40 is actually by Toro y Moi also.
Oh, love.
Not quite Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. And produced by Sonja Mereu.
Let's go.
Yep. Shot it on my birthday.
That's right.
One of the hottest shoot days I've ever had. Well, I just wanted to point out that this movie has the most insane amount of product placement that I've ever seen in my life. And for anyone who knows, I think I talked about this on my Baby Driver movie minute. I'm kind of obsessed with product placement. And so Nick and I did a fun game when we rewatched this the other day, and we took a shot every time that we saw a new brand.
Oh God.
There were 25 brands that I counted.
Oh my God.
But I might have lost count after I had 25
I'm
shots.
still drunk.
Oh my
And these ones
God.
are, I mean, they're in your face. The product placement in this movie is
Yeah.
just like,
You can't miss
you
them.
cannot miss them.
That
Yeah.
is so funny. I love
But
that.
I guess that, it's also probably how you finance. Like, I'm sure this movie had a pretty nice budget.
For sure. I think I read somewhere, I mean, that Zendaya alone, acting and producing, walked away with like 10
10
million.
mil. So
Yeah.
that's what that product placement paid for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The
good
goat.
for her, 'cause
Yes.
the movie, like, I think someone else probably could have played her role, but the movie would not have been successful.
Oh, it wouldn't have made
without
it. Yeah,
her.
it was a big,
No.
a nice box office
No.
smash. Nice
Yeah.
spring box office smash.
For sure.
And I do think, like, Nick and I talked about this too, like the young, like the college age Tashi, like that was kind of a perfect role for Zendaya, like just the thoroughbred, best of the best kind of person, because that's how she's felt ever since she like came on the scene as an actress.
Mm-hmm. I love her in this movie. I don't know if it's like, I'm not gonna say it's like her best, but I really, really enjoyed watching her play this character. And like, yeah, in that, one of like my favorite moments is her first game that we see that the two boys go to. And she just does this like crazy scream where she screams, "Come on!" And you can just feel like her fire in her. And I love it so much. And then they come back to it in the very final scene of the film, and she releases that "Come on!" And it does something to my brain. I love it, and my heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see why they fall in love with her instantly.
Oh, yes.
She owns the court. She owns everything that she touches.
Mm-hmm. She's also kind of scary in that way, which I love. Like, I love to see how controlling and intimidating she is in this. It's just, it's kind of like a flip the script kind of thing too, where, she's the coach in a relationship with the guy she's coaching. And I don't know, I was just thinking, I was like, I feel like we've seen like the opposite of that, where it's like a man is the coach and then the woman is the prodigy or whatever. And so I think it was interesting to see that kind of like flipped in this as well.
Yeah. It just made me think. I was like, I think in this great movie called The Cutting Edge.
Oh, yeah, Cutting Edge.
she's the expert at ice skating, and he's the novice.
Right.
Very cutting edge.
That's so funny. Another sport romance.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
co-pick.
There's a good gimme 3 sport romances.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know that Nick's never seen Silver Linings Playbook?
What?
Which is crazy to me. I'm not even the biggest fan of that movie, but it's like a movie that was made for Nick.
I feel like, yeah, you would love that movie.
Sometimes you got to save stuff for yourself, Sometimes you just got to, somebody's going to say,
Honestly, I feel
that's
that.
the best movie for you. And it's like, all right, cool. I'll save that one then. I'll tuck it away for a rainy day,
I weirdly relate to that so much. Like, yeah, I'm not going to watch that anytime soon. But thank you.
I do need to watch it because I'm in the process of rewriting a sports romantic comedy. So I think it's finally time to
it's time
dust her off and throw it in the old VCR.
VHS.
We do not own that movie on VHS. But I do think that maybe after this trilogy of episodes, you could do sports romances.
Yeah.
It'd be a good excuse to watch it. And The Cutting Edge.
I like it. I like it already.
All right, challengers, check it out. Let us know what you think of it. You could stream it right now on Amazon Prime or on MGM Plus, which is apparently a streaming service, I guess.
Interesting.
Didn't know that.
Are you sure it's not just like,
or maybe
an
it's an
arm of
add-on.
Amazon?
Yeah, maybe it's an add-on of Amazon, because didn't they buy MGM Plus
I think so.
Yeah.
or buy MGM?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yes,
All right.
they
I was gonna
did.
say MGM as its own would be kind of crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so Amazon Prime is the place to check out Challengers, my friends. A hell of a good time. All these movies are a hell of a good time, and we want to know, of course, we want to know what you think of them. We want to know what you think of A Different Man. We want to know what you think of Love Lies Bleeding, and we want to know what you think of Challengers. Please let us know not only that, but what your favorite film of 2024 was. You could do all that by scrolling down to our episode description, and you're going to find a link that says send us a text message. Click that link and you can send us a message that's going to go directly into our inbox, and hell, we may even read it right here on the air. You can also message us on Instagram at Gimme3Podcast. That's GIMME spell out 3 podcast. Gimme3 Podcast. You can slide into our DMs there. Bella's always posting these amazing videos and wonderful, badass images that she's creating. She does all of the heavy work on there. So if you like our Instagram page, that's all Bella. Speaking of Bella, do you want to let the wonderful folks know where they could find you on the socials?
Yes, you guys can find me on Instagram at Portrait of a Cinephile or on Letterboxd at Efstratis. That's just B as in bug and then Efstratis.
Most people go with the boy on that one, but I like that you went bug. I was just keeping them on.
My brain was really slushy, and I almost said B as in B. So I was like, what is Bumblebee?
To be fair, B does start with the letter B, so that would have
Right? So it's you get it.
Yeah. Sonja, my wife, is not on the socials, but you are on the Letterboxd. So, Sonja, do you wish to share your Letterboxd info?
The only social that matters.
It really is. I now, like, when I have to kill time, I just go on Letterboxd and look at what my friends watched recently.
Right? You know exactly what they're up to for at least 2 hours out of the day.
Yeah, I know. I have a friend, I probably thinks I'm like stalking him. I'll like just text him. I'm like, oh, so what did you think of Baby Girl? He's like, what? Why are you checking my Letterboxd every day? But yeah, my Letterboxd is Sonja M, and Sonja is spelled with a J, SONJAM. And it's a picture of my cat Muggs, who has been quietly sitting next to me this entire recording session and not being disruptive in any way.
Good job, Muggs.
Aww,
You all right?
Good job, Muggs.
Yes, you're not fired.
You can find me on Letterboxd, on Instagram, and on Blue Sky at Nicholas Ybarra. Ybarra is with a Y. And you could find me on Twitter, also known as X, cesspool that it is. I'm on there for some godforsaken reason. You can find me there at Nicholas P. Ybarra, and the P stands for P.
God damn it.
All right, my friends, we will see you next week for 3 more favorites from 2024. Until then, thank you all for listening to the Gimme 3 podcast. Once again, if you live in Los Angeles, stay safe, stay informed, and we hope we are able to take your mind off of the darkness for an hour and a half or so. But we love you all, and we will see you at the movies.